What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jay. Welcome back and thanks for joining us. Today we have Rob, who is a financial advisor, so let's sit down with him and see what he's got for us. What's going on, guys? Please join me in welcoming Rob here. Rob, how you doing?
Good, buddy. Good to see you, man.
Same here,
Great to be here.
But why don't we start with a little bit of your background? Where did you grow up? Career-wise, what did you do in the past? And
Sure.
Then we'll go to what you're doing now.
Sounds good. So, lifelong Philadelphia resident, lived in the Philadelphia area my entire life.
Okay.
Avid Philadelphia sports fan, proud dad, trying to indoctrinate my kids with that as well. I worked in business and finance for 15 plus years in various roles. Recently most recent position starting MFP, Millennial Financial Planning, back in 2016.
Okay.
And during the course of that, I was also in the military for 10 years, serving as a sergeant and as an Army reservist.
Wow. So you were in the military during your work period, so kind of going back and forth. Is that?
Yeah. So as a reservist, it's a part-time gig, like 1 week in a month type thing, here and there, getting called up for, different things you got to do around the area, or, even in different states. Got to travel across the country doing, some training, missions, things like that. So I was kind of doing that in the background as I was also, in college while I was pursuing my MBA at Temple, and also working on my business and having other full-time jobs.
Great. So why don't we start with what are you doing these days and what do you want to talk about today?
Sure. So my main role now is as an entrepreneur, you wear many hats. So with Millennial Financial Planning, or just MFP that we call it for ourselves, I am one of the founders. Okay. I'm also one of the two financial advisors right now, and I'm kind of like our head financial and compliance and regulatory guy as well.
Got you. So to start, how did you end up starting your own business? What drove you to that point?
So, very interesting story. So myself and my business partner actually met at the prior company we were both working at. Okay. We started to work together and kind of did something that was out of the norm for that industry, that kind of be siloed because it can be very sales and commission based. However, we found, as both being in the millennial generation, we were getting a lot of people that were our age, a little bit younger, a little bit older as well, that their problems were different. And what they were focused on financially was very different than what and how we were going to make money for ourselves and for the company. So prime example, student loans, huge deal right now, right? How do we pay for them? Are they going to be forgiven? The COVID stuff is kicking the can down the road, right? So we would have folks come to us and say, I want to invest, but I'm not ready yet because I have a lot of student loans I need to pay for, right? Plus other things I want to do. Well, we could help them, but we really weren't going to make money for ourselves or for the company because we didn't have a product to sell that would help them address their student loans. Gotcha. So kind of through this process, we said, what if we kind of tweak the business model a little bit where we could help anyone with any type of financial advising or investment problem, regardless of if they had a lot of money, a little money, they wanted to invest now, wait 10 years, whatever their issue was, we could actually give them advice and guidance and help for it without them needing to necessarily buy something or sign up for a product or start an account. Understood. So that's kind of how the idea started to generate. And then from there, we did a lot of research on the state regulations, FINRA, SEC rules on how to start your own company, what that process was, how much was it going to cost. Honestly, I became a lawyer for probably about 6 months.
How did you even get into this financial field?
So me getting into finance was actually kind of by accident. Okay. When I originally was starting out at undergrad, I was actually going to a school planning to do something in a science field, like biology, something like that I was into. About 2 weeks.
You're into biology?
Yeah, I just happened to be into it, believe it or not. But 2 or 3 weeks into college, 9/11 happened. Okay. And just completely changed kind of how I thought about things and thought about our country and what I wanted to do. So I quickly transitioned and started thinking more about wanting to do something in law enforcement or government.
Okay.
But when it came time to graduate, I also wanted a job right away.
Okay.
So I actually just got into business and finance really by accident, talking to some friends around town at the time, saying like, hey, I graduated school, I'm looking for work. And I got introduced through a contact of mine to a debt collection agency.
Okay.
So working at this as a debt collector, nonetheless, is where the first time I really learned about credit scores, like personal financial management, budgeting. These are all things that like they kind of start teaching you, because we're looking at people's credit scores as we're talking to them on the phone about settling a bad debt and resolving these financial matters. But that also opened my eyes as to like how easily you could have one mistake, one misstep, like really just knock you out financially, and it can be a really tall mountain to climb to kind of get back out of that hole. So, but fast forward from there, is when I started getting more into business financing, small business financing, equipment leasing, and was working for a company that did that, and started doing my own, reading and research on the stock market, personal investing, things like that. Started doing it on my own.
Wow.
I figured I'm spending so many hours, like, during my lunch hour after work, reading about
just because
I knew, like, kind of clicked in my head, like, this seems to be something important for the long term. It's interesting. It was really exciting, and I was learning a lot just reading on my own about that stuff. That figured, hey, why don't I try to just make more of it for myself by doing this for a living.
Gotcha. So kind of looking back, I know it's been a bit, but what was kind of the hardest part about starting your own business?
The hardest part was definitely the regulatory requirements.
Gotcha.
To initially get things going with the paperwork, and crafting up our own company contracts for how we were going to handle clients, what services we were going to provide, how much was it going to cost, and you essentially create, this very long document.
Mm-hmm. Were there any fears? I mean, I feel like this sounds like a scary situation.
Absolutely, there's a ton of fears. There's a ton of fears of, like, we have no idea what we're doing. We actually haven't been in the industry that long. And even some fears where, like, direct self-doubt, where you're reading something and go, actually, maybe this is going to be easier than you think. And go, no, it can't be that easy, because everybody would just go and start their own company. But, there's other things that go into having your own company and running any type of business. So we wanted to kind of really make it a basic, simple business model that people would understand and say, okay, I get it. I'm going to pay the same when I go from point A to point B, and I kind of progress through my life and my financial planning kind of journey. And as I'm starting to add more pieces and maybe more complex pieces to what I'm doing with my finances, like, I already know what this is going to cost me.
Gotcha. So as you are kind of continuing your business, how do you sort of gain more clientele? What do you do in those sense?
So gaining clients, we kind of do a little bit of everything. We do advertise and market things on social media. We've done events in the past. We'll also do a lot of networking. And then of course we have like our natural kind of networks that come just from you bump into people at the gym. You're talking to somebody in the supermarket. They find out about what you do. We kind of tell them how we kind of have a unique model, things like that kind of gauge somebody's interest and kind of take it from there.
So then if I was a client and I come to you, like, what would be an example I would come to you with, like, hey, I want to buy a bigger house, and so what would be like, what do you do at that point? Hey, Rob, I know you have a business, financial advising. I want to move into a house, somewhere in the burbs, $400,000. Like,
gotcha.
what do I do? Like, is that what they come to you with, or is it?
Sometimes it's just as simple as that, to say, hey, like we have this goal, we have this life goal, it's to move. We kind of think like this is about our price range or our budget, but we'll help somebody, define that more clearly.
Okay.
Because, especially one for the home buying process, which is very important right now because of just how the real estate market is across the country. It's very like you need to have your ducks in a row because houses are on average, I think, selling within 5 days.
Right.
So you can't wait to, let me get pre-approved and then get back to you. It's like, I already have 3 offers. Like if you're not pre-approved already, you're not even in the game. So, but to answer your question, it is that simple to say, hey, this is my goal. Like, and we kind of start to put the pieces together to let someone know how realistic that is, and if it is realistic, or how to get to that point. Like, they might not necessarily be ready yet, and we kind of start laying out the groundwork to say, all right, well, let's start with what your current budget is, right? Let's see, like, how much do you have in savings? What's your income? Are you buying the house by yourself, with someone else? Are you getting investors? You plan on having roommates? Like, what does that look like? Gotcha. And then start laying in those pieces to say, all right, at your current budget, let's hit some calculators and see right now how much house can you actually afford, or show them this is what your mortgage would be with that type of home at that value, right? And then another key piece is, let's look at your credit report. When's the last time you looked at it? Okay. What's your credit score, right? Because credit scores make a big difference in the type of interest rates you're going to get. Right. You might get approved, but that same house might cost you a lot more money in the long run because you're 1 percentage point higher on interest rate based on having, a credit score in the 600 versus the 700. Right. So those are the kind of things we just start to kind of inform and educate people on when they make, especially a big consumer decision like that for a property, so that they kind of, and then also we might bring in real estate context that we have to say, hey, kind of walk this person through the process. If you've never purchased a home before, what does that look like? You got to get that, like I mentioned before, like, all right, we got to get the pre-approval first. Then I need this. I need these documents from you, right? So that way you already have things ready to go, nice and neat. So when you are ready to make an offer on that home, everything is tied up in a bow, and now you're just hoping to make the deal get done.
Gotcha. So, but you're kind of looking at the individual's whole financial scope and kind of putting the pieces together to say, Jay, you're spending way too much money eating out, and you should probably save it here. Like, is that something you do, or is that not like you?
No, that is very much something we do. That's why we made sure we created up our own budget worksheet that keeps up to date with what trends are now for people, right?
Understood.
Like going out to eat. A lot of people, they might have a car but still use Uber and Lyft a lot for same reason. So our budget sheet has like ride sharing as a specific line item, because that might be something you do every weekend when you go out to dinner or drinks with friends and family. So that way we can look at that, and someone might realize it, but it might also help them to just hear it from somebody else to say, I already know I spend a lot of money on sneakers, but now you're telling me I spend too much money. It's like, I realize I got to do something different here if I have these other goals.
Gotcha.
So we will, even though they're only focused on, we just wanted to sign up with you guys to do college planning or plan on buying the next home or whatever the thing is, we still take that step back to look at everything as a whole.
Gotcha.
Because at the end, all of those types of financial things going on in somebody's life, in and out of their bank account, they still at some point kind of tie into one another.
Versus if you were to help another business, you basically are looking at their balance sheet and statements of that nature to say, hey, I want to get my net profit up by 10% next year. Like, you would be able to kind of look through that and kind of give them like, hey, you're spending too much money on overhead cost, or you're spending too much money here. So you look at like granular things like like every single thing to kind of.
We would try to have the time and the information to look at almost everything like that.
Wow.
And that's in part like my personality, like make sure like I check and triple check like almost every little box, right? And dot every I and cross every T. Because it's easy to be like, oh, we have a credit card for miscellaneous items. But if you're telling me that bill is $3,000, like there's a lot of miscellaneous items. So just like you mentioned, we want to look at a business's balance sheet. But then even more important to a business, you want to look at their cash flow statement and their income statement. Like, where's the money coming in from, and then where's it going out to?
Right.
Prime example, we had a business client in the past where people traveled from all over the place to kind of meet at the office and then go to like different sites where they had to do their work. They were spending a ton of money on ride sharing and reimbursing employees for that cost to come from another part of the city to go to a job site. It was like, you just buy a van.
Right.
It'll save you a ton of money. Even with the insurance, just buy a used van that you can put everybody in and have them meet here. And like, if you need to do a ride sharing thing, like we are paying you, that's kind of your own personal expense. Simple tweak like that would save thousands of dollars a month, depending on how busy they were, just in their cash flow and their expenses.
So like, I think my last question for you is that if somebody is wanting to get into this field, what should they be interested in, and what would you recommend for them to kind of get their foot in the door?
Sure. Good question. So first and foremost, you should be, I think, if you want to be a financial advisor, financial planner, investment manager, whatever the title may be at a specific company, first and foremost, you need to have a desire to want to help people, because that's really what they're coming to you for. Some kind of guidance, advice, maybe just reassurance, maybe just a second set of eyes to say, I just want you to double check that the other guy who I got some money with, like, is what they're telling me on the up and up. So you really got to have that client first, in the industry, fiduciary is what they call it, type focus, where the client's needs and concerns are well above yours or even your company's.
Right.
So you got to have that desire, because that's a huge part of being successful. Second, definitely do your research. You really want to know what you're getting into, the type of company that you're going to be working for, what's their pay and salary structure.
Right.
Are you going to be salary based and just kind of working with people as they come in? Is it going to be more sales driven, where you really got to get out there and beat the pavement in order to make a living? So you want to know that ahead of time, so that way you don't waste a lot of your time.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Last thing I would ask you to do is to plug in MFP.
Sure.
So, where can we find you? How can we get in touch with you? All that good stuff.
Absolutely.
The floor is yours.
So, you can find us online at planwithmfp.com, as well as the same name on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can find us directly on the website, reach out to us there via phone or email, or slide into the DMs. let us know what you got going on, and we'll give you some guidance.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ralph, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man.
All right.
Great to be here.
If you are interested in a specific career path or know someone who'd like to be interviewed, please email us at askalutely@gmail.com. That's basically absolutely without the BS.